WineCAST is brought to you by Cafe at the Plaza, Milwaukee's east side destination for breakfast, brunch, and lunch. Part of the newly renovated Plaza Hotel located at Cass and State. And I've heard the pumpkin pancakes are screaming my name, or rather the tawny port. Karen mentioned that the tawny port already would go quite nicely with the pumpkin pancakes with cranberry syrup. So I have got Karen in the room. This is my sister Karen. Everyone say hello to Karen. You can go ahead and type in anything you'd like to say to us. We're on the kind of the eve of Christmas, so we're getting in the festive mood. We've got 3 bottles of port open here, so Karen's already like, I love tawny. I'm like, tawny. So I've got the wrong ones open, so we opened a tawny too. So we've got 3 open now. We've got milk chocolate, we've got dark chocolate, we've got everything here. So I wish you guys were all here with us, but we'll all drink together with our ports and chocolate. So if you're wondering how to say hello, Brian's already said hello to Karen. It's real simple. You just go to our homepage and type anything in under audience. You see, oh, what happened there? I got pushed back to, I've got my computer's possessed. Right, yeah, subliminal messages saying, everyone eat at the cafe. Okay, so go ahead and type anything in under audience, and it'll take you here, and you can either log in or sign up. And then if you decide to sign up today, you just fill in the 5 fields, and boom, you are a part of our conversation. So today is WineCAST number 19, and this is designed for our wine newbies. Really anyone who wants to build a foundation of wine or just drink some port tonight. I think it's a perfect wine for the holidays. And tonight we're going to start with an intro to port wine, and then we're going to take you through the world of port wine over the next 3 wine casts. And we're going to give you the basics for enjoying port tonight. And it's a wine that I think is a little misunderstood sometimes, maybe even a little scary, because it's got such a long history that it also has a ton of tradition. It's, do I decant it? What do I do with it? You know what? All you really need is a bottle and a mouth. That's really all you need. And it's great because a lot of these don't even have corks. So you don't even need a corkscrew. You just need your mouth and a bottle. So it's actually really simple, and we're going to dispel any confusion or misunderstandings tonight, I promise. So, as I said, we've got Karen here, and we want to know what you guys think of port. I find that it is it's a wine that's very polarizing. People either love it or they hate it. They think it's too sweet, or they love the sweetness of it. Karen loves tawny, like we said, and it's interesting because in our family, we often get together for any reason really to eat and drink, and Karen's the chef, so she does all the, and my mom too, all the cooking. And when it comes time to me saying, what should I bring, everyone says, well, why don't you bring the wine? And I'd like to believe it's because I work in wine, but I also have a feeling it has something to do with the fact that I don't cook very often, and so it's just like, let's be safe and let's delegate the wine to Jess. So it's interesting because apart from learning what my family loves to drink, apart from learning that my family loves to drink, period, I've learned that it's really fun to have a bottle of port. I bring certain wines to dinner, but having a bottle of port at the end of dinner really keeps everyone around the table, and I love that. And, I don't know if it's the port or the chocolate that I often bring with the port. For those people who think port is too sweet, just give them a piece of chocolate and it'll make the wine almost taste dry. So I don't know what it is, or it's the alcohol, the sugar, or just sitting around a table with everyone having a good time. So Karen, what are people saying about port? Are they or what do you think about port?
Well, like you mentioned, I do love tawny ports. Ruby ports I can take more in smaller doses. They tend to be a bit too fruity sweet for me, but I love the nuttiness and the caramelization and the dried fruits of tawny ports. I think they're just delicious.
Right, and that fruity sweetness can be kind of dulled a bit with enough chocolate. We load on the chocolate. So is anyone mentioning what they like, if they like anything?
Well, Brian says all styles, and Christine says love it.
Love it. All right, I love it. I love it that you love it. Perfect. Okay, so you usually get that love it or hate it response, and the reason for that, and it's really understandable, is because it has, by definition, it's a sweet wine. And by definition, it's a high alcohol wine. So it's not a kind of a dull wine or a wine that just, is middle of the road. It's extreme. And so people either love it or they hate it. And the reason why we've got this high alcohol is because these wines, port wines, are what we call fortified wines. Now, what fortified means is are wines that at some point in their production, they add brandy to it. So they add brandy to the wine. And the other major major fortified wine would be sherry. So the port and sherry are the two great examples of fortified wines. There's others out there, but those are the two most obvious ones. And they're very different though. Port is always sweet, whereas sherry actually always starts dry. And we'll talk about sherry some other day. Karen and I are big fans of sherry. So when we talk about fortified wines, like I said, it's the idea of adding brandy. Now, when I think of that, I think of two questions. One is, who was the brilliant person who thought to add brandy to wine? And then the second question is, why is port sweet? Why does it being fortified make it sweet? So let's start with the first question. Who came up with fortifying wines? And no, it wasn't Karen. Can't give her credit for that. But she is, a chef and is always pursuing all these ideas. And I want to know from you guys, is there anyone out there who, gasp, you don't finish a bottle of wine? I want to know if you've ever maybe just forgotten to finish the bottle of wine for some strange reason and come back to it a couple weeks later. Let us know if you have. But I have a confession. With all the wines that I drink or taste, every now and again, I do not finish some bottles of wine. And Karen has been very diligent about, cleaning up for me. And I'd like to believe she's not taking them home and just drinking them. But what are you doing?
Half and half.
Right. So what are you doing with the bottles that I don't finish, the red wine bottles?
Making vinegar.
Making vinegar. Okay, so this is going to form the basis for the concept of fortification. Is that wine, once you open it, or even if you don't open it, it's on its way to vinegar. Some more quickly than others. And as a result, there sometimes is a need to preserve it. And I know we don't encounter this problem often, this idea of wine turning to vinegar, because I know you guys drink all your wines, first of all. But secondly, we have fancy innovations like glass bottles and corks and airplanes that make it less likely for us to see a wine go bad. But let's go back all the way to Portugal in the 17th century, where this wine was conceived, and when port came into existence. And what you find is that they don't have the fancy airplanes, the bottles, or the corks, and as a result, wine went bad. Now you add to that idea that you are transporting wine from Portugal to England, because at that time, England was really pissed off at the French, and they loved wine. So they were in a conundrum. They needed their wine. So they went to Portugal for it. But that's a long voyage from Portugal to England. So what did they start doing? They started adding brandy. And that way, it was able to withstand the trip from Portugal to England. So before too much of this port goes to your head, we got to throw out the first wine IQ, our wine interactive question, which is a way to get you guys involved. So this one is, what percentage of port wine typically was, let's say 1720, we'll just throw out that year, versus is, like say today, your port that you have in your glass, from brandy? So what percentage of port typically comes from brandy? Is it A, 1 or 5%, or 1% in 1720, 5% in 2011? B, 2% in 1720 and 20% in 2011. So you can see how it goes. You take a look at that and see what you guys think. And I know this is a tough one. It's like, how do I know? But go ahead and take a sip of your wine. And your palate's going to tell you today what percentage, or it's going to give you an idea whether it's 5 or 40%. 40% is a spirit, basically, and you got 5% is a beer. So I'm giving this one away here. But go ahead and take a look, and also take a look at the bottle. Check out the percentage of alcohol. If you look here, let's see. Oh, that's going to be a tough one. I don't know if you can see it up there. But alcohol is 19.5% on our bottle of wine. So and I haven't showed you the bottle. Pretty bottle, 6 grapes. Okay. So what you've got is high alcohol. Now, is anyone coming in with any answers?
Not yet, but do you mean what percentage of brandy is added to the wine?
So what percent total of this wine is made up from brandy?
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a little misleading. Even before you even started drinking. It was, or I don't know, maybe Karen's having too much tawny over there. I know this is a tough one, so let me just tell you the answer here. The answer is B. In 1720, they only added about 2% of brandy. The wine that traveled from Portugal to England was only 2% brandy. It was meant mainly to preserve the wine, and that was maybe enough at that time. Now, though, it's up to 20%. And the answer to that actually is going to help us understand why this is sweet as well. So, why is a 20% alcohol wine sweet? Well, we've got to go back to what fermentation is and how fermentation works. So fermentation is when you have sugar from grapes and then yeast eats the sugar and then you create alcohol. So we start off with lots of sugar and low alcohol. As it ferments, you've got less and less sugar and more alcohol. Now what happens with port is that at some point during fermentation, they're going to add brandy. And what happens is it starts to ferment just a little bit actually. So maybe we get to about 6 or 9% alcohol on our wine, and then they add brandy. So we still have lots of sugar and only 6 to 9% alcohol, but they add brandy, which takes it all the way up to 20%. So that is why it is sweet, because fermentation as a process is very sensitive to external factors. One of which being levels of alcohol. The yeast die at 20. I mean, I'd die if I was swimming in 20% alcohol, right? We'd all die. So the yeast die, and as a result, you can have high sugar and now high alcohol, and the wine is still stable. So that is why port is sweet. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at these styles of port and see how sweet it really is by taking a sip. So let's start off by taking a look at the wine. This is a nice red wine. In the next WineCast, we'll talk about styles of wine. So we'll talk about maybe some tawny, but this is a nice ruby color because it's a ruby port. Now go ahead and check out the nose and see what you think. Go ahead and, you know what, these ports you can swirl. Now, be careful because it's 20% alcohol. You might get a little bit of a fried nose on the alcohol, so be careful with it. And what you could do is kind of waft, I guess, it under your nose a little. You can swirl it, but it's gonna just cause the alcohol to be even more pronounced. And that would probably be on our list of aromas, alcohol, without a doubt. But go ahead and, by habit I swirl, but go ahead and, waft it under your nose and see what you think. Now, while you do that, let me just show you this label here. Let's get to a better picture here. So this is definitely a wine. I keep talking about Portugal. That comes from port. You see at the bottom there, Porto. That's actually a city in Portugal. And Portugal, it's a port town in the north of Portugal. And this is actually it. On the left-hand side of the picture, you've got Oporto, which is the town. And then on the right side of the river, you have a town called Vila Nova de Gaia. Don't worry about how you spell it. If you want to know, do you know how to spell it, Karen? You're going to type it in for me. Vila Nova de Gaia is actually where all the lodges are, or the port houses are. So this is what Oporto looks like. And the reason I bring that up is because port comes from Portugal. And we'll talk a little bit more about what, when we can use the word port and when we can't. But port is from Portugal. Now, when you smell, has anyone come in with any aromas? Okay, you guys are a little quiet there tonight, but I'm going to help you out, don't worry. So in terms of the nose, going back to the nose, the reason why I brought up this picture here is because this town, Porto, is on the coast. On the coast, it is cool and wet, a great place to age port, but not a great place for growing grapes. But if you go down this river, and the further inland you go in Portugal, the hotter it's gonna get, the drier it's gonna get. And the reason why I say that is because you can smell that ripeness. These are very ripe grapes. And the soils are warm soils, which are gonna make the grapes even warmer. You can see the sides of this river are extremely steep, which are going to really amplify the sunlight. And like I said, it gets dry and warm. And you'll smell lots of dried fruit. Also just plum, really, really ripe plums and cherries on this wine as well. So there's lots of fruit. You might get a little sweet spice on this one, but this Graham 6 grapes is very much a fruit-driven, alcohol-laden ruby port. So now let's go ahead and try this wine and see really how sweet it is. Go ahead and take a sip if you haven't already. I actually have a spit cup tonight. I know it's not very glamorous, but if I'm gonna get through 3 20% alcohol wines, I might sneak in a little, but I might need to spit a little tonight, guys. So what you're gonna find on here is it's sweet, and I want you to think about what level from 1 to 10 this wine is in terms of sweetness. So think about that. Think, well, how sweet is it? And while you're doing that, I want to mention this idea of port again. Port as a term is protected in the EU. So by law, no other bottle can put port on their label and sell it if it doesn't come from this specific region. That said, in the US, it's not protected. So we see ports from the US, we see ports from Australia, we see ports from all over the world in our market. But what is important to know is that it is a protected term in the EU, and perhaps one day it will be protected in the US. It's just the US says it's a style. They're latching onto this idea of fortified during fermentation is a style and not from a place. Although the town is called Oporto. I don't know. I mean, we won't get into that debate today. So Karen, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think this is in terms of sweetness? For your scale, there's no right or wrong answer here.
For my scale, yeah, I would say 7 to 8.
7 to 8, and I think Christine came in at 7, yeah. Brian came at 8. Yeah, this is a sweet wine. Now the reason why I say that is now I want you to grab anything sweet. Karen's got some chocolate here. She's like, finally I get to eat the chocolate. Sue is saying a 6 or 7, great. So grab anything sweet. If you got chocolate, grab it. If you've got fruit, it'll work, but grab it. But even just like a spoonful of sugar, grab it. Anything that's got sweetness in it, grab it, take a bite of it. And then I want you to take a sip again. I'll stall. Go run to the kitchen. I'll stall. So take another sip, and I want to know what that level becomes. It's the same wine, but if you really tune into your palate, it will change in terms of what you perceive the sweetness level to be. Karen just took a hunk of chocolate. So Karen, tell us, what type of sweetness level are you at now? I got her with her mouth full. I got you on camera too.
Oh gosh. I would go down to a 4 or 5 from my 7 to 8.
Okay, great. So you can see how something sweet is going to bring down the level of sweetness. And so when I say, bring this to a dinner for the holidays, and you say, well, my friends don't like sweet wine, bring a box of chocolates too. And you're gonna look like a whiz when you're like, okay, do this trick on them. Say, okay, it's sweet, right? Just take a sip, work with me here. Then give them a piece of chocolate, ask them to take another sip, and they're just gonna be amazed. It's one of the easiest ways to show the importance of food and wine pairings to people is port wine and chocolate. So there you go. I'm gonna make you guys look good over the holidays. So I wanted to get Karen with her mouth full, so I kind of lost my place here. But that is why I always bring chocolate with the port, so that people who love port can drink it. But if people are looking to, if I want to change people's idea about port, I give them a little chocolate as well. So, at our family, like I said, everyone's happy around the table at the end of the dinner. And I don't know if you guys know, but Karen and I are one of 4 girls, 4 daughters, and now we're all married, so we've kind of equaled the sexes at the dinners. But up until recently, almost every dinner would end with someone crying, and I'm not exaggerating. It was up until just like 3 years ago or something, like last year, yeah. And I really think I have something to do with it, bringing chocolate and port to the dinner. Yeah. Maybe it's just because we're older and more mature, but I don't know. I think people are happier.
Bringing just one bottle of port.
Maybe just, one. It was like the bell curve, literally the bell curve. If you had 1 bottle, we're all happy. 2 bottles, and you're just going to have like a total blow-up disaster. So that's all the time we have for today, guys. But don't worry, we're going to be hitting tons more port in just a little bit. Let me know what you guys thought about the wine. And I love what Christine said. Who comes to port night with no chocolate? I know, it's like scandalous. So let me know what you think about the wine. It's a specific style. You know, it needs sometimes for some people some chocolate or something sweet, because it's going to change the effect of it. And I think that's all we got for you. But you know, what we covered today was just know that port is sweet and high in alcohol, but there's ways that and places that are good for port, so that you can enjoy it no matter what your palate is. So I see some people saying buy it. Yeah, this is it's around $20, I believe, and it's a staple. This is one you can find without fail almost everywhere. So it's called 6 Grapes, easy to find. Great price point for a host or hostess gift. I would say finish it. I'm kind of with Karen. I kind of like my tawnies better, so I like this one, but I probably might go for a different style of port, which is what we're talking about next. So stick around. In about 5 or 10 minutes or so, we're going to be hopping back on and doing our Wine Explorer and talking about styles of port. So Karen's going to have an excuse to drink her tawny port, and we're going to be talking about ruby port some more. So, I'm Jessica Bell from My Wine School, where it is wine your way, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in WineCAST number 20. See you soon.